Hi, I'm Kenneth WAJDA. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my weekly photo talks. So today I want to talk about 4x5. So over the years I've had 4x5 cameras and I just couldn't figure out what was worthy of that large negative. And what should I shoot? What do I go? Where do I do? And I had a Zone 6, which I found somehow the way it was built and the knobs, they had they were knurled, but they were kind of sharp, and everything about it felt like it wasn't somehow all that inspiring to me. So then I'm at a flea market, or not a flea market, a yard sale this past summer, and there's a woman selling photo gear, and she has this. And it's a little Wista DX 4x5 with a 150 Schneider lens, and she didn't want very much for it. And the thing about it is it's small and it's quick, and I could leave it. What I do is I typically, now I've been using it by putting it in the car, and when I get to the car I set it up. You can open it up, it closes up really easily, but if you can set it up, and I like to leave it open, if I can do it. I like to leave it open and then lock it, and then leave it on my seat, sitting there, so if I see something, I can quick get out. I have a tripod in the back seat with this quick release on it. I can literally come out, pop this on. You start shooting outside in daylight, you start realizing that most of the exposures are about the same. I think I was getting like a quarter of a second at f64 for like multiple scenes that were sunlit that I was shooting. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's good to know. Then I start to remember, hey, if something's on the quick, go use that same go-to shutter speed and aperture situation. And then I was like, well, I want to shoot more. The only way I'm going to shoot it more is by creating a project. So I created a project called 4x4x5. And I use a Stearman Press SP445 developing tank that Tim is a local person who I know who makes those in his garage studio in Erie, Colorado. And I had bought one of those years ago before I even met him, and that process is 4 rolls of film in one 16-ounce chemical bath. So I said, I'm going to go out and shoot 4 frames, 2 film holders. Oh, they're inside the case that's in here. 2 film holders, and that's it. Here, I'll show you. I have the camera sitting on a Bernice Abbott biography book for inspiration. Actually, just to raise it up a little bit. But so I would just take 2 film holders with me. And if you go out to shoot 4 photos and you say you can't come back until you shoot 4 photos, you find 4 photos. And also, I found that I was going up to people and making an introduction. If you walk up to somebody and say, hey, you're doing that, can I take a picture with this? This is what makes them say, oh, yeah, I'm interested. What is that? That's interesting looking. And that's exactly what happened. I was going up to people. In fact, I went to this one motorcycle shop. I'll put a link to all the photos from that whole project. There were 70 photos that I made. And I'll put a link to all the photos that were made there. And there's one of a motorcycle shop, and there's nobody in it. And the person who was working in that shop was so perfect for a photograph. And the light was coming in just outside the garage door, so it was just bathed in ambient light, but a lot of it. And I was like, it's going to be perfect. And I went up to him and I said, hey, can I take your photo? But I didn't have the camera in hand yet. I was still sitting in the car. And he's like, no. And I'm like, that's the problem. You need to walk up with it. Hey, can I take your picture? And then you have this in your hand. And then once they say yes, then you can take your time to set up the tripod, do an exposure reading, get your film, put it in, make the exposure, and it's all fine. But it's a fascinating way to work, and it's fascinating how that camera makes the agreement. Okay, you can do that because you have that. There's an old story back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. If you got work as a photographer, it's because you had the camera. Very few people had cameras, so if you had one, you got that work. And in a sense, that's what happens with this camera. I'm able to make those portraits and those photographs because I had the camera. And what I did with it was I photographed them in black and white film. I used Bergger Panchro 400, which is a film I had just tried and I really fell in love with. And I'm like, I'm just going to use that one film for mostly everything. Although there was some old T-Max 400 in my refrigerator from 2012 that I said, I'll shoot some of that too. And so that got it into the mix as well. And you'll see the ones in the gallery that say TMY on those are the T-Max, and the ones that are not marked, those are the Bergger. And it was just fascinating to go out and to make portraits of people. And then I'd ask them for contact information, and that's not true. I would give them my contact information and say, here's who I am, and if you send me an email, I'll send you a copy of the photo. And when they sent that email, I never sent them the photo. I asked them for their address. And then I took the photo, I made an 8x10 print. I printed it smaller than 8x10 on the piece of 8x10 paper, so I have room for the actual frame of the film holder, and also so I have a place to title it and sign it. And then I put it into a frame that I pick up at thrift stores and yard sales for a couple of bucks, and then I would bring it to them. And there was no charge, there's no way they can pay for anything. Somebody even asked for an additional copy. I said, yeah, I can get you more, but you still can't pay for them. And that worked out great. That was like one of those things where it's like, I wanted to create a project that said, in a world where they say there is no free lunch, there's a free lunch. This is a gift. I made this, and I want you to have it. Afterwards, I did end up setting up a link to a funding site if anybody wanted to support the project by buying more film. That's the only way that they could even support. And that was only because people were saying, I have to give you something for this. And I'm like, you can't. The whole idea of the project is no pay. But if you want to support the project, you could go to the funding site and it would just go toward more film. But I love that. I love that I was able to gift so many people. There's one photograph of 3 people just having lunch by a lake. And I made 3 photographs in 3 frames and gifted them to them. And they were like, what do we do now? And I said, there's nothing to do. Just take them. That's the point, is they're a gift, and I made something that now exists in your home. The idea of making a photograph, there was a talk the other day about what is a photograph? And like, if you're not printing those photographs and you're not really looking at them, then what are they? But these photographs are framed and they're ready to be hung or placed on a shelf somewhere. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a wonderful way to be able to hand somebody something that really didn't cost very much. And it was something that lets me make my art and lets me have full control. You know, you talk about when you're an artist and you're working versus when you're a commercial photographer and you're working. When you're working commercially, they say, let's do it this way, and you say, I don't even like this way. But you're the boss, you're the art director, we'll do it. But the beauty of a project where you do it your own way is you have full control, and you can make all the decisions. And I like that. So the beauty of being an art photographer or having a project where you aren't charging means you have to have all the control. And all that control means you're going to do it your way. I like that. And so it was a great thing. I got some great letters from people thanking me for the photos and how much they were appreciated. And I made some friends. I've had some people who I've actually stayed connected with. And it's all because this camera was at a yard sale. And I said, I'm going to go out and shoot 4 pictures a day. And when you're looking for 4 pictures, you find 4 pictures. And I can't tell you, like, there's not a lot of cost to doing this. People are like, oh my God, how can you afford to shoot 4x5? The Bergger film was $65 for 50 sheets. So if I'm bad at math, let's say it's $1 a sheet. It's a little bit more. It's $1 a sheet. So I'm spending $4 a day on 4 sheets. I process the film in my own kitchen with that SP445 HC110, which is pennies. I don't think I'm in for more than $5 per day. And you can spend more than that on a latte. And I have 4 photographs that I made that day. I was only taking 1 frame of each person. Like, I wasn't doing multiples. Unless something happened. You'll see a couple places where there's 2 things, if there's a reason why I felt like I needed to shoot another one. But the idea is, I'm only shooting 1 frame. I'm trying to bring home 4 separate photos every day. And by going out and spending $5 a day, that doesn't seem that prohibitively expensive. And for as many people who would say, oh, I can't, it's $20 a sheet to shoot 4x5. It's not. I was using the new film. I also have the T-Max, which was old film that was in my refrigerator from God knows where, and that works fine, and I didn't pay very much for that if I have it, I'm sure. And again, everything comes down to, are you doing your own processing? Yeah, if you're using a lab, I did a couple frames in color that I didn't include in the project because I didn't really think they fit with all the black and white. I did a couple of frames with Kodak Portra 400 that I had in the refrigerator, and it came from the lab with a clip mark in all 4 corners. And I'm like, I get one little tiny mark in the upper corner of my negative when I hang it with a clothespin, but why are there 4 marks? He's like, oh, that's the way it is. That's standard. I'm like, there's like 4 kind of like marks in the image on the 4 corners. And he said, that's the way the developer lab works. I guess that's what $20 a pop pays for. But I think they were only $5 or $4 each for me to process them and make them into negatives, process negatives. But the idea is, if you are doing it yourself, it doesn't have to be that expensive. If you buy Arista EDU 400 or 100 film, I think that's around $55 a pack of 50. So if you're better at math than me, that's closer to $1 a sheet. And if you want to go HP5, yeah, you're going to pay closer to $2 because it's twice the price. But I am perfectly happy with the Bergger 400. I'm perfectly happy with some old stock I have. I like, you know, the Arista. I use a lot of the Arista EDU as well. So I found that to be a great project. It was great fun. I ended up getting a lot of work that I was able to create from it. And in a world of a pandemic where you would think there's nothing to shoot, I found 70 things to shoot. And it's a question of, what are you doing? What are you setting for your goals? What are your limits for what you will not return unless you get them? Because I needed 4, I went up to people because I'm like, well, I need to shoot somebody. I need to shoot something. And some scenes I shot that didn't have people in them, but for the most part, I started out shooting without people, and then I kept looking for where can I add some people. And you'll see that in the gallery. But if you have the chance to put it onto a large screen and then open the photos big, if you click the photo, it'll go to the next one without having to use the arrow navigation. But I find that the 4x5 quality and the print quality was exceptional. And it was a treat to use. And I got pretty fast at it. You start shooting 4x5 for a day, you get pretty quick at it. There was a shot you'll see in there of a yard sale. And I literally went to the yard sale and I said, okay, there's nothing for me to buy here. Okay, hey, can I take a photo of your Marilyn Monroe poster? And they're like, what? And by the time they even were unaware of what I'm even doing, I pulled the tripod out, put it in front of my car. I'm parked right in front of their driveway. I put the tripod in front of the car, popped this camera onto it, set the exposure for what I've been shooting, a quarter a second at f64, something like that. And then literally pop the film holder in, quick take a look, before I put the film holder in, take a look, focus, compose, pop the film holder in, shoot, and leave. And it was like, I want to say under 3 minutes, which is only because I was doing it so much, I got good at it. You get fast. And you get familiar. You don't forget what's where because you're doing it. So I think that of all the cameras that I've owned, there's also something odd that I would say, I don't understand maybe why this is, but the Zone 6, and I have an Ebony, both of those, the spring back for when you put the film in, this one moves really easily, and I can put the film in without bumping the whole camera. And both the Ebony and the Zone are such tight pieces, the way their springs are, that every time I go to put the film in, I feel like the whole camera shifts. And this one, it doesn't do that. And maybe it's just a loose spring, I don't know. But this camera feels like the one that was made for me to work with. And I got to do work with it, and it was a treat to do. So take a look at the photos in the link, and that's my 4x4x5 project. A good summer project. All right, that's today's photography talk. Do you shoot large format? I'd be interested in hearing your comments. All right, I'll be back next week. Thanks so much for watching. If you can support, hit the Patreon or subscribe.